we'll address that today. But I think more broadly, it's important as an incubator of the dynamic and incredibly influential Austin scene over the last 50 years. And in terms of the blues particularly, it played an incredibly important role in providing opportunities and hospitality, including week-long stays, to many great artists who in the 70s and 80s simply weren't given the recognition and work opportunities they deserved. Not that things have improved that much today for the blues, but anyways, it was, Antones was really, Clifford Antones' dedication was so important to so many artists. Veteran blues and soul artists on the new set who played at Antones include Snooky Pryor, Lazy Lester, Miss Lavelle White, Barbara Lynn, Jimmy Rogers, Otis Rush, Eddie Taylor, Buddy Guy, Albert Collins, Pinetop Perkins, and James Cotton. And the two latter ones moved to Austin from Chicago. And today we'll recognize the legacy of Muddy Waters and Bobby Blue Bland, arguably the most important blues artists of the post-World War II era, who were favorites of Clifford Antone. Our panelists today include John Primer, who was in the final Muddy Waters band, the wonderful Magic Slim and the Teardrops, and in his own right is now lauded as one of the most significant elder statesmen and carriers of the Chicago blues tradition. Look at him. He's almost 60 years old now. I also want to take note of the presence today of the great Chicago guitarist Lurie Bell, the son of the harmonica player Carrie Bell, who likewise played with Muddy Waters. We also have Bobby Bland's son, Rod Bland, here with us. And Rod is a proud representative of his father's legacy and a wonderful drummer in his own right. And as we'll hear, he has a very unique perspective concerning encountering Antones while very young. And Clifford and Susan Antone were family to many of these artists, as were the many loyal musicians who developed their skills there. The folks running the club and the record shop and the always incredible house band. Guitarist Derek O'Brien, a veteran of the early band, is here today, and we'll be talking with saxophonist Joe Sublette, who was there from close to the beginning of the club, and we saw him up there with Otis Rush and a bunch of other people. He later became a leading session man in LA, playing with artists including Rolling Stones, Elton John, B.B. King, and we could take up the whole panel of going through his discogs or all music credits. He's currently a member of the wonderful Phantom Blues band of Taj Mahal. Antones has served as a major platform for many young artists, including Marcia Ball, Lou Ann Barton, and Angela Straley back in the years. And more recently, women including Sue Foley, Cam Franklin is with us today, and panelist Eve Monsees. Youngest is last. So, who's a wonderful guitarist and recording artist and performer as well, and she runs this shop, the record store, Antone's Record Store, together with drummer Mike Buck, who's here with us today. As Joe Nick Mikoski addresses in his liner notes onto the 50th set, the promotion of female artists was really significant at Antone's early on. You saw evidence of that. And the label was also reflected by the presence of many women who were also involved in other operations. So she's now an integral part of the Antones operation, so we'll talk to her about that. But I want to turn now to you, Joe, since you're the guy that arrived in '76 from Corpus Christi, is that right?
That's right, yeah. Just a few months after the club had opened up, maybe it had been open 3 or 4 months, and Austin was Mecca to us in Corpus Christi and other places in Texas.
What was the scene like in Corpus Christi? I mean,
well, there were a lot of bands, but I had my own blues band, and not many people were playing blues. They were playing everything but that, and it's like kind of turning their nose up to blues. And we had Jimmy Vaughn, Stevie Vaughn, we had Paul Ray, we had Doyle Bramhall, Senior they call him now. Keith Ferguson, and all these different guys come in with Cracker Jack and Texas Storm. They would come and play Corpus, and so of course we would just go there to hear those guys play. And eventually Stevie came in with the Nightcrawlers, which was Doyle and Keith Ferguson, and we had asked them to spell us on a gig that we had a 7 nights a week gig, and we were going crazy. So we said we knew somebody that knew them, and we said, would you guys come in and spell us? We just got to get out of that club. Of course, they came in, and we jammed the first day, and we were there every single night to see them. So we never got out of the club. So yeah.
Wow. So it was receptive. You're a horn player. Was it receptive to horn players? Because I think of a lot of blues bands, at least the stereotype is of loud electric guitar dominated bands.
Yeah, it was definitely guitar based, but for me, and we got Rod over here, Bobby Bland, his band would come into Antones,
right?
And they had what, 4, 5, sometimes 6 horns, and so listening to Bobby Bland and his band, and then B.B. King with his horn section,
right,
gave me this sort of, okay, I can do this because there's horns in the blues.
Right, and Bobby Bland had the Joe Scott arranging
Incredible.
at Duke Records.
Right.
Bobby Bland had a long career. I'll talk to Rod about that in a minute. But already a long career with Houston and Duke Records, which had great horns on the.
And if you go listen to the Chicago blues, there's saxophones on almost all those records. Buddy Guy, Otis Rush, and even John Lee Hooker on his early records. Had some saxophone and had some horns on it, which led me to playing with John Lee Hooker because Clifford was always such a promoter. So he went up to John Lee Hooker and he said, "Hey, don't you want to have a saxophone tonight? You had saxophone on your early records." And John Lee said, "Yeah, I'll have a saxophone." So I got to play with him.
Wow.
So Clifford was like that, he was always trying to promote us, to play with other people.
And was it from early on? Was he bringing in all the Chicago, not
Yeah,
just
he's
Chicago
bringing-
people, but
Yeah, he was bringing all those guys in, and if there was somebody that came in and they didn't have a band, it was usually, most of the time, it was the Fabulous Thunderbirds house band. They was actually called them the house band back then. And they would back up, if Muddy came in without a band, they would back them up. And then I was in Paul Ray of the Cobras, which is how I got into playing at Antones. Pretty soon after I moved to Austin, I re-hooked up with those guys and I started playing with Paul Ray, and that's when we first played Antones. It was just a few months after the club had opened up, and that's when I first met Clifford.
right.
And Clifford, man, he was all about blues. That's all he lives for. Really, I've never been around anybody that was more into the music than him.
Mm-hmm. So that must have been pretty amazing for you to. Those were great players, obviously, that were local, I guess
Right.
you could say. But what do you think you gained from being able to play with all those Chicago legends?
Well, I think I've said it before, and probably in the interview before. But one of the things that I got from them, not only about the music, when you're standing next to these guys, you're learning. You're hearing it. It's going directly into your brain and out of your horn. But what I really got from them is that these guys were so gracious and kind and giving when so many had been treated badly, and so many of them really didn't profit from their art. And so I learned something about humanity as much as I learned about music, I have to say.
Right. And Clifford was a really good gig for those guys.
It was a great gig.
Antones,
Well, he took care of them. He'd bring them in. He would put them in nice hotels, and he would chauffeur them around and take them to their favorite restaurants, and he really treated them like the deities. In my mind, they should have been treated like. So it was a wonderful time, really.
Right. Well, I want to move on to John, who was the deity himself now in the blues, but grew up. With a lot of, he's from Mississippi, and then spent a lot of time with great artists, notably, as I mentioned, Muddy Waters and Magic Slim and many others. I thought I'd ask you about. I know you came to Antones with Muddy. Is that correct?
Sure, 1980.
Okay, what was that like? You remember that gig?
Sure, it was a great gig, and my first place out of town with Muddy Waters. We played around, but I was excited to go to the place. I ever heard about it, but I never had been there. But so I was very excited to get there. And when I got there, it was one of the most amazing places I ever seen. It was a blues club. I said, to myself, this is a blues club. And so at that time we was in the band. He had his new band. The old band had quit, and we had the new band. So, but fortunately, Jimmy Rogers was sitting in with him, you know, and.
Jimmy Rogers, who was in the original Muddy Waters band in the early 50s. Yeah.
So he was a part of the band when I got joined the band, and so he just, you know, told Muddy to find another guitar player. But so that night, but we was playing on stage there, and I think Jimmy Rogers was drinking. He had been drinking all the way, because we was the lead band. He had two bands, and you could see him drinking and talking to Mojo Joy, harmonic player, talking, and he drinking that whiskey, had a whole fifth of Sherry Rica's. I think he drank it all up. The bottle was empty when we got there. we checked in the motel, and so that night we performed, and we playing good, Muddy playing. At that time, the stage wasn't a big high stage. It was like a homemade stage to me. Wasn't that high up. So we playing this song, Everything Gonna Be All Right. And all of a sudden, Muddy looked around and Jimmy done stumbled off the stage and all drunk. So only thing Muddy did, if you did make a mistake, anything on the stage, you playing guitar, he don't say nothing, he just turn around and look at you and smile. So that was the end of the with Jimmy Rogers. Go touring with us. We got a guitar player the same night, which was Rick Crail, the trial,
Sure.
So that's the time I got to meet Clifton. Clifton, he was there then, yeah. When I went with Muddy.
And you came back later with Magic Slim.
And I came back with Magic Slim, yeah. And so, speaking of Clifton, he was a great guy, man. All the old guys, he was some, and all of them would tell me how nice he was to musician. But some of the guys that went there, they live in the back there sometimes for weeks. But a lot of them didn't have a guitar. So Clifton would ask them, hey, buy you any kind of guitar you want? You want a guitar? You need a guitar. And he would take them to the guitar place and buy them a great, not just no, off-brand guitar, it was a Gibson. Whatever they wanted, he would give them a guitar for them to keep, whatever they gave it to them. So he was a great guy, man. He loved the blues, and he just strictly kept all the blues going alive for all the Chicago musicians, and in Texas too, because he was that kind of guy. Right. He looked out for not just for all nationality. He looked out for them. He did a great job for those guys. He was a wonderful guy, man. So that play was one of the plays that we all love, and we still do love, and memories kept us on. It was a great place.
Right. Joe was talking about mentorship, playing with the older guys, and of course Muddy was your guide into maybe the big time. But can you talk about what that was like in Chicago? That you also experienced mentorship at places like Teresa's Lounge, which was. What was that like? Who did you encounter when you were a young guy there?
I made it to Teresa Lounge in 1973, going about 72, 73. And when I got down to the club, it was amazing for me too. Another blues club. So she's been having that club since 1932, and so it was always been a blues club. So Teresa Lounge was a great place for me to join up with the band with Junior Wells. Junior, he probably had heard about me, and when I got the gig, I told him his guitar player that played Willie Dixon sent me down to get take his place, because he quit. He gonna quit playing down there. I said, okay, well maybe down there on Sunday. So that Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock, I caught the bus, rode to the south side. I was afraid, and but one thing about it, 4801 South Indiana was Teresa Lounge, but the bus stopped and I got off at a block before I got there on 49th Street. So now I'm afraid, because I know the Blackstone Rangers is there, and I was afraid of and all other kind of gangbangers. So I was shaking, I had my guitar, and so when the bus pulled off, I pulled off too. When the bus got to 48th Street, I was there. Now I walked down in the basement to Teresa Lounge, and my first time ever being there. And so I hear this guitar player, John Walker, that played with Willie Dixon there. He was playing this song called "Play That Funky Music, White Boy." So I walks in, I see this old lady sitting at the bar, and she just sitting there nodding, have a beer can sitting there with an apron on. That was Teresa. I said, "Good evening, ma'am. How you doing?" John Walker sent me down in the rehearsal with his band. She said, "Hey, he's back there. He's playing this funky music, white boy." And I started back there, and she threw a beer can at him. Shoo!
As she should.
And said, "I told you about playing that I don't like to swear, but I told you about playing that shit in my club." And I get back there and he points at me and said, "See, that's what I'm talking about." I said to myself, "Why did you invite me down and you throwing beer cans at you, man? I'm afraid." And
It was dangerous inside and outside.
Yeah, dangerous inside and outside. But that was the place I got. I went to school for 7 years there, 7 nights a week.
School, yeah.
$15 a night, $20 on Saturday. And so that was a place for me to meet all those guys.
Who were some of them?
Louis Miles, Dave Miles, Fred Robinson, Sammy Lawhorn was the guitar player, Junior Wells, Hound Dog Taylor.
Wow.
They all came down there. All the harmonica players came down there. All those great guys came down there, yeah. Johnny Winters came down there. Broomfield, Mike Broomfield, I bet all those guys. So that was a place for me to learn, and no one ever complained to me about playing guitar behind me. I was like, wasn't the lead guitar, I was the rhythm guitar player.
Right.
But every time Sammy would sit on there and get drunk, they waiting. And one of those famous guys come up and play, and I played rhythm guitar, out here. So I was going to school. That was schooling for me. I didn't mind it.
Right, and not all blues clubs were like Antones or...
No, not that.
These were...
Was Teresa didn't buy you anything.
Right.
She found out that I never drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes, but she found out that I didn't drink, but I was singing your daddy's song. Today I started loving you. I was singing, "Today I started loving you again."
Yeah, doing this country stuff.
So I'm singing it. I had been there for 6 months and I never singing. I was singing that song and she came back with her hand in her apron pocket. And looking at me, I said, "Oh Lord, here she comes. She's gonna come and shoot me." And when I finished the song, she looked up at me and said, went in her apron pocket, I jumped, pulled out a $10 bill. "Here, motherfucker, I didn't know you could sing." and give him anything you want to drink. And there was all some pops and the juice.
All the pop you want to drink.
Yeah.
Can I turn to you now? We're going to talk about Bobby Bland, and he was referring to your dad, Bobby Blue Bland,
Another guy.
country music a lot, right?
Yeah, so Today I Started Loving You Again
Yeah.
was a Merle Haggard song.
Yeah, right.
And that song was a part of a record he put out in '75, recorded here in Nashville, called Get On Down with Bobby Bland.
Right.
And unfortunately at that time, no one was prepared for or really wanted to hear him do country. And to this day, it's probably like one of the most sought after records. But just whenever he would kick into that song in the set, he said, "We're gonna do a country western song, a Merle Haggard song." He wouldn't recognize it today though.
Oh, you wouldn't recognize
That's what he would say, like in the late
Yeah,
'70s
yeah.
and '80s, even '90s when we were doing it.
But he was a country fan. I know he was also a
Yeah.
fan of a lot of crooners too.
He
right?
he grew up listening to a lot of country when he was a little boy, when he was able to hear the radio, and of course, it's widely known that Nat King Cole is responsible for his distinctive style, his diction, and how he sang.
Right. Yeah, that he admired a lot of the pop singers of
Yeah.
the time who were just great, had great control. And now, I hinted in the introduction about you having a very unique take on Antones. We talked about that yesterday. That it was
I
a place
did no
where
underage drinking until I was at least 19 and a half. I know what you're trying to do.
I'm trying to get you back way before 19 and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, so you came as a kid, is that right?
Yeah, so, yeah, I was born in 76. And when I wasn't in school, I was always on the road with my dad and my mom. And I think the first time that I can really recall being in Antones is maybe 85, 86. So, picture my old man rocking the Adidas tracksuits when he wasn't on stage. And there's a great photo of my dad and Clifford in the back of his bus. It's in black and white that I've seen floating around the internet. But I was a kid, had no business being inside of a club whatsoever. But one of the perks of being a kid that as a father or parent in general in blues is that the club and the club owners are going to welcome you. And, I was crawling around on top of the monitors and, trying to snatch a stick from a drummer because I wanted to play along to sit behind a kid, just air drumming. But Clifford he welcomed me from the time that I was born until, we lost him in 06. And Susan has, right alongside him, never let me or anyone that's ever played the club want for anything. It's just like he was saying about if you need something gear-wise or other, no questions asked, you got it.
Right. And I just want to talk to you about how you're representing your father today. I mean, you're somebody who's dedicated to trumpeting your father's legacy in many ways.
So when I lost him in 13, I never thought that I would, unless I'm just passing through town, be back in Austin, or let alone Antones. And so when the idea of Ron Bland and the Members Only Band came to fruition and we ultimately released a record, I used to, excuse my language, bug the shit out of Zach. Like, hey man, can we get my dad's tribute project? And he said, yeah, we'll find a way, we'll make it happen. Finally it happened in 23. And that show, even though I was kind of physically in pain, almost had 2 broken arms from a slip and fall 2 weeks prior. But Zach called me and said, man, I really loved the way you played. Stand by for some future developments. And those future developments turned into me being a part of the house band, the All-Stars, and I never thought I would follow in line with Mel Brown, who's my dad's guitar player, off and on for years, and be that closely associated with the club, with the brand, with the family. And so in front of everyone, Zach, again, thank you.
Yeah, and Mel Brown being, I mean, your father's known as a great singer, but
Right.
he also maybe had the best history of guitarists in the band. It was astounding.
It started with Wayne Bennett and it ended with Mel Brown, in my opinion.
Clarence Holloman, Johnny Jones, unbelievable.
Again, for me, it was Wayne
Yeah.
and Mel Brown and Charlton Johnson, who's my dad's last guitar player, Ray Neal, but
Yeah.
it was Mel Brown, the way his style blended with my dad's, and then of course the music that he put out with Silent Partners on the Antones label in the late 80s. That instrumental version of Two Steps from the Blues is, to this day, still one of my favorite versions to listen to.
Oh, great. Well, Eve, I wanted to talk to you about Monsees, who we're going to see you today as a great musician, but you also are the co-owner of the record store now, one of the important institutions. When did the record store actually begin?
It opened in 1987.
1987, around the same time the label started.
Right, so at the time, the nightclub was located on Guadalupe Street, just north of the UT campus, and this building became available right across the street, and the back half became the record label office, and then the front half became the record store. So in 86 is when the label was starting up. Actually, in the box set, there's a great story how the label actually, before they had that space, there was one desk in the nightclub, but there were 2 people, and there was 1 chair, so they had to share those things, and then they moved across the street, and then the record shop opened shortly thereafter. And actually, Mike Buck was one of the first people to start working at the shop, so he's been a part of the store since '87.
Picked up a couple 45s. I think like we talked yesterday, I was wanting to talk to you about the legacy of so many women being a part of Antones. I was wondering if you could touch on that, both in terms of artists and also like the women helping to run the club and the record shop.
Yeah, I mean, early on, I was first drawn into Antones. Gary Clark and I were about 14, picked up some guitars, and when you're in Austin, you know about Antones, and immediately drawn to all of that. And I just remember early on seeing an Women of Antones CD, and there was a press photo that went with it, and it was Barbara Lynn and Miss Lavelle White and Lou Ann Barton, Angela Straley, Marcia Ball, Sue Foley. There are just so many amazing women, and those are the people you see on stage, but also Angela Straley had helped with the record label and getting the club off the ground early on, and it was kind of I think the nature, everyone wanted Antones to succeed, and there were all these different components to that, whether that was putting on a show or helping release records or recording records or selling records, and there were just, in every aspect. Diana Ray, you mentioned Paul Ray and the Cobras. Diana did a lot of artwork, a lot of the show posters that you see, and to this day, at our shop, Mike's daughter Billy Buck does a lot of artwork now. So really, just every part of it. But seeing so many musicians and that were involved was also, I think, a little bit unique for a lot of scenes.
All right. Well, it's pretty wonderful that you guys have this band. How much have you all been playing as this particular band, or how much does it reflect is there an Antones house band now, or?
It's, well, like this, I think it's sort of a revolving group. It's not, two guitar players. It's a lot of guitar players, and as you'll see on which it's always been that way, I think. But yeah, I mean, early on, as mentioned, the T-Birds were the house band, and I mean, it started, I think, to grow from there. Derek O'Brien, of course, is house band for life and all things Antones. But yeah, as you'll see on the new recording, there's a lot of different people, so it sort of revolves. And each show that we've done, it's been a slightly different combination of people. So, and I'll just say it's a huge honor to be part of that group, because as a kid going and bothering people like Derek and Denny Freeman and asking them what kind of strings they use and the super annoying questions that a 15-year-old who's trying to play would ask, and
When did you first set foot on the stage in Antones?
It was the mid-90s. Gary and I were 15, and we'd met Clifford, but he'd never heard us play, and it was a sold-out show. It was Mojo Buford and Hubert Sumlin, James Cotton, and he said, and Derek was playing, and George Raines, Tommy Shannon, and end of the night he said, "You guys get up there," and he pulled us up on stage, and we were like, "Oh!" And
with all of them.
Yeah, well, actually, so Hubert sat up on stage, but Gary played Hubert's guitar, and I played Derek's guitar, and yeah, we did like the two songs we knew. One was T-Bone Shuffle, and I think the other was probably just an instrumental song, but yeah, and I mean, he was just so encouraging, and the fact that he wanted us to be up there on that night, and then shortly thereafter, we were invited to play one of the Antones anniversaries, and I mean, Lazy Lester, who was there from start to finish the whole night, he would pull us up on stage with him too. Clifford would introduce us to people. So yeah, there was so much encouragement, and I mean, what a great way to learn, just to be up there. And I mean, especially at that age, you don't know a lot. You love it, and you're kind of trying to figure it all out, and you just kind of, you have to figure it out. You don't want to screw up. You don't want to disappoint anybody, and yeah, it's the best education.
That's the benefit of being surrounded by so many great musicians, right? It's scary, but if you go through that, you really come out better.
Yeah, it's a total thrill, and between the encouragement and excitement and all that, usually works out.
Okay, well, we have, I think all four, we're going to change costumes, maybe not change costumes, but appear as musicians in just a minute. So we'll clear the stage and get this set up.